Welcome to the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-hosts, Dr. Steve Jeffs and Erwin de Grave. Each episode, we bring you expert guests and transformative coaching insights. Let's dive in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-host, Dr. Steve Jeffs and myself, Erwin de Grave. And today we have the honor and pleasure to talk to Travia Steward. Hello, Travia. How are you doing?
Hello, Erwin and Steve. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm doing fantastic today.
Great. So, Travia, we could try to introduce yourself, but you're the person who knows yourself much better than we do. So, who's Travia? How did she came in coaching? What does she do in coaching?
Okay, so Travia is someone so for 24 years, I was a high school theater teacher.
Oh.
And then, I feel like a lot of people in the professional and personal development space have that poignant moment of, is this as good as it gets? Well, I had that moment in like 2017 or so. So I'm like, I'd heard about this life coaching thing. So I was like, I need to get my own coach. So I did. And then I realized, oh my goodness, I was an athlete in college, athlete in high school. And I was like, how have I gone this long without having a personal coach? So I was still teaching high school theater. And I was like, oh my God, this has been life-changing, so transformational in how I showed up. So I decided that I also wanted to do this. I wanted to do that kind of work because teaching for 24 years, like I loved it when I loved it. And then after a while, because it was so long, my fire began to dim. And then there was just, there are some things when you realize, okay, that chapter is closed, but because it's what you are familiar with, what you have been doing for so long, I resisted the temptation to go, oh, I need to quit teaching until 2020 when I was diagnosed with early stage breast cancer. So I felt like I've always wanted to be a speaker. Coaching was calling me, but I wasn't courageous enough initially to pull that trigger until cancer. So that's what brought me into the coaching and personal and professional development space. And how I show up is with my background in theater, I believe in helping my clients overcome self-doubt through becoming who they need to become in order to get that goal. So that's a little bit about me, and let me know if you want to know anything else.
Interesting. So theater and coaching, it's something that is a connection. We've already had spoken to someone who was an actor. What are the similarities that you see in theater that you also can be using in coaching? And do you also use in the coaching with clients?
100%. So this is how this idea was born. So I always thought theater is theater, on the stage, in the classroom, wherever, on Broadway, off Broadway. It wasn't until probably 15 years ago or so, I was directing this show called August Osage County. You may have heard of it. I'm not sure. It was on Broadway for a while. And I was directing this show, and my lead actors were like, Miss Stewart, I don't know what to do with this. I'm still the character when I go home. I'm griping at my family. I'm doing all these things. And my girlfriend is doing this. And she's like, I don't know you anymore. And he's like, I'm taking the character home with me. And he's like, I can't get out of character. And so then it was this whole light bulb of thinking about someone like Heath Ledger, Leonardo DiCaprio. They all are fans of method acting. So the light bulb went off when, if we can method act on stage, why can't we method act in life? Because one of my favorite quotes is from Cary Grant, the actor. And he said, I pretended to be someone that I wanted to be until I became him. And so I feel like the two can totally go hand in hand if we are able to be open-minded about it and go, you know what? I can act as if I am already that person, because then we start taking on the habits. We shift our environment. We shift our circumstances, all the things in the subtext and the backstory. And we begin to believe we are those people. And then we naturally become those people. So that's how I think they go hand in hand.
Quite powerful.
Well,
So
yeah,
certainly when people talk about attitude and positive attitude and really and try to behave, what you just explained makes it such more tangible for people. Certainly for me, when listen, it's if I would be an actor, how would I act in the life that I would like to have?
Yes,
there's a
absolutely.
lot of empowerment in that perspective, which I'm really appreciating. You know, we go through life and life happens to us. I
Mm.
loved your phrase, you know, you loved it when you loved it. And when the chapter closed in my head, like it's almost like you got stuck in the book, stuck in the chapter until something sort of external shifted some things. And as a coach, we get to be that for lots of people, but to be able to go, well, not just who has life created you as, like
Mm.
which parts of you have survived through the life that you've had and have been able to come out, but actually, who do you want to be? Like, what a powerful question.
Yeah, thank you.
And starting acting like it. So that. So how do you make? So it's easy to say, "Hey, act like an actor, or act like that you would be," but it's you need to be able to integrate in your day by day, and not create
Hmm.
situations that could generate conflict. And like you said, that an actor on that Broadway said, "My girlfriend doesn't recognize me anymore." So how do
Yeah,
you help people to deal with that? Because it's like I like that idea to say, "Hey, act as you would like to be," but what would that mean for the environment around you?
absolutely. So when we go to acting, one of the things that in order to develop a character fully, we look at the given circumstances that the author has provided. The author says, oh, here's the location. But the author also goes through and says, oh, this guy, Erwin, the character, is married to Alice, but they have a rocky relationship. Oh, when Erwin was 18, Erwin was cut from the baseball team, whatever that thing is. So the author provides backstory, given circumstances. So then when I used to direct shows, I would say, okay, here's the first layer. The first layer, Erwin, let's see you become the character physically. Now you're walking like the character. Now you're standing, your posture, everything about Erwin, when we look at him, is the character. Now let's add a layer to that onion and go, now you have a wife that you've been married to. Maybe the marriage is not the greatest. I want to know before you enter stage that you just had a fight with Alice. So now we're adding depth and dimension to your character. Well, now how does that transform and transfer to life? We all still have given circumstances. The author didn't make them up. They happen to us, they happen for us, they're experiences. So now we go, okay, if we can go back and change what that experience means, because my methodology is we break it, like break patterns, break behaviors, and then we build it. That's when we work with self image, and then we become. So I believe on the stage, we are constructing the onion layer by layer by layer. In life, we're doing the opposite and peeling away all those layers. So that's how I believe the two go really, really hand in hand.
Interesting. Certainly, I think you're going to have a lot of because you mentioned the self-doubt is something that fits, which would probably be one of the centers of most people, that the self-doubt is with all those spiels around that they put on there and so on. So it's I do understand that self-doubt is what many people have. Maybe many don't talk about it, but they do have it.
Right.
So how if you look at it, how can you help people with self-doubt? And what is your methodology, or how do you work with people to say, I've got self-doubt? And your methodology, certainly, I imagine with theater and acting, how do you use that to help people to say, I can be more confident?
Right. Because No one comes to me and says I have self-doubt. I just know that from the coaching work that I've done, it's the overall problem I solve. But I rarely use those words like on my website, in my copy, on social media, in my content. Rarely do I use that. People come to me and say, you know what? I really was going up for this promotion, but I don't feel like myself. I'm waiting for this guy to validate me, but he's no longer with the company and he used to believe in me so much. And I feel like I can't do it anymore because I just don't have my supportive team. And I'm just doubting whether I should go up for this promotion. So now I know what they want. That's their overall objective. They want to get that promotion. Well, now we go, okay, well, what's stopping them? So, what's stopping them are all the obstacles in the way. So, again, when we go back to theater, whenever we were building a character, we go, okay, Erwin's character wants to get love. Now, the show is 2 hours long, act one and act two. What are the scene objectives, actions like bulleted benchmarks that Erwin needs to go through in order to have or not have love at the end of the show? What's the same thing with real life because we put those scene objectives, those actions in there, but then we let's let a tire come off the bus. Let's put an obstacle in the way. Let's do all those things. So again, in the opposite, I go, okay, when you want to show up for that meeting, but your old supervisor is no longer there, what's happening in that moment? Well, I just don't believe I can do it. I just don't feel like me again. Well, I know that that is where we begin to unpeel that onion because there are some layers of, I call them ghosts, because we all have this baggage that we carry. And I say it's in a metaphorical suitcase because, when I was in like fifth grade, my teacher said this thing to me, and then I didn't make this team, and then my mom said this, and then somebody said this about my outfit. Well, now I'm 41 and all of that stuff is in a suitcase. And I set it down and go, I'm ready for the next job. And then I go into a meeting and all that crap, we open up the suitcase and it's just, flying up. And then I'm delivering a presentation in a meeting. And then my fifth grade teacher, of course, in my mind, is standing there judging me. Why? Because it was such an emotional impact on me. So I remember how I felt vividly. And so when those things happen, and I now begin to work with the client and go, okay, what are those positive charges that you still feel today? And then we begin to peel down to the root of that issue in the form of, okay, let's unpack that suitcase. Let's figure out what that person's default sentence is. Because I believe we all have a soundtrack running in the background. And of course, you probably realize that everything about me is theatrical. We got a soundtrack running in the background that's underscoring everything. But I believe that, like, once I recognize what my default sentence was, like, all the lights went off, all the light bulbs. I was like, oh my God, this is so. It wasn't until I was like 40, like 44, that I was like, oh my God, I've been carrying this. This is the script that I have been walking through, and this is the soundtrack that's been playing. So we figure out what all that stuff means for the client that I'm working with. What's their soundtrack, their default sentence? When does it show up? What do they do when it shows up? And so we begin to peel that back and go, okay, let's look at this moment. And then we take moment by moment. And so I hope that made sense for you.
The way it makes sense to me is almost like instead of picking up the script and like going through the author notes of the character, you're kind of starting with the character in front of you and going, well, this character is only part of who you can possibly be. Mm-hmm. And well, you're saying that this character doesn't fit what you want to achieve. So there's other parts that you get to bring, but actually let's kind of look back and go to the brief that you're feeling stuck in. And let's change the character description so that the rest of you can be free and you can create what you want.
I love it, Steve. I need you to walk with me for the rest of my life. Yes. Explain it just like that, Steve. Yes, exactly. Yes.
That sounds really fun. And what what I love about any talk around theater, acting, and coaching is there's always this authenticity thing that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, well, but if I act like that, I'm not being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, from the outside, we know that the best actors are the ones that find the character within them, and they are authentic in what they're expressing. And the place that I love about this is we'll often collapse authentic and comfortable or familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And through the metaphor of stage or movies or books, we're going, well, actually, who do you want to be? What lights your fire? What's the soundtrack that really wants to be playing? Not the one that you've given yourself permission to carry. But
Mm-hmm.
what's going on behind that? And again, that empowered question: if you could choose any character that you wanted to be in life, who would it be? Who would you
Yeah.
be?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's so powerful. One of of course, as coaches, we do the work ourselves. And so, and part of this work, I love to go to conferences, and I went to a conference a few years ago, and we were in that conference. It was, like they were doing a whole meditation for the whole, audience. And during that meditation, I was directed to go back to all the times in my life where I had lost confidence. And when I went back, it was like, oh my goodness, it was when I was 6. It was when I was in 6th grade. It was when I didn't hit a home run my junior in high school and we got state runner up instead of state champs. It was when, and I went back in all of these moments and went, okay, how can I rewrite the meaning of me missing that ball in left field and we lost that game? How can I rewrite the meaning of, when the window shut closed and I wanted to have this conversation when I was 21, but I was like, oh, I made it mean this thing that my mom hated me. And because my mom hated me, I could not invite her to our wedding. Just all these things. We just make this stuff up. And so, yeah. So, yeah, I
That,
just wanted to throw that in.
that's awesome. And I want to highlight for our listeners that you used the word change the meaning, because meaning is
Hmm.
the meaning creating machines. Now, the events happened. We can't change them. They're not good. They're not bad. They just happen. There's meaning that we create from it. And where you're reminding us is that the meaning that I've currently created is all made up anyway, and I don't have to be stuck in it. And we
Totally.
can go back up or back in and make different meaning that serves us differently from where we are now.
Absolutely. Yep.
Is
Perfect.
interpretation, basically. Like it's you interpret what happened, and it's like they say, you can look at a glass is half full or half empty.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So how do you look at it? And it's and then, like you said, I love that metaphor that you said about the suitcase. I use backpacks. I prefer to,
Yeah. Yeah.
they carry the backpack on the back and it's heavy and it's going.
Uh-huh.
And I tell them, look, that's heavy. Let's take it out. And it's
Absolutely.
and being able to work on this and take this out. And I love this. When you were talking, what came to my mind was also role playing. So I
Hmm.
think imagine what you do is a lot of role play, because a role play is where you start acting in a certain way or not.
Yes. 100%. Yep.
Hmm. So um so I've seen that you got a specific framework that you use
I
with,
do.
so that it's to become. And can you go a little bit more in depth? Is that related to what we've been talking about, or is that something different?
No, it's related to exactly what we're talking about. Um, Basically, it's the letters become. You probably saw that on my website. So the B stands for baseline. Like, we have to figure out what are they thinking, what's happening, what's the programming, like what software are they running in their life. Are they still running like Windows 5 instead of, what are we on, Windows, I don't know, 25, I don't even know. But are they still running that old programming that they were running in high school in their early 20s? So figuring out what's the baseline, what are their motivations, and what is the perspective of how they walk through the world and how they view the world. So the baseline is really getting a sense of, oh, that's how Steve thinks. Okay. So when Steve thinks of, this is a horrible example, when Steve thinks of 9/11, you know, is Steve part of the Taliban, or is he like, oh my goodness, my dad, that kind of. So we all view it differently. So now I'm like getting a sense of, okay, this is how Steve walks through the world. And so then we begin again to peel away the layers. And then the E is embody. So now we begin to look at killing that default sentence. What would we love to create? Who would we love to become? And then that way we go, okay, if I want to get this promotion, this is what I think that person, like some people come to me and they're like, I don't know what that looks like. And I'm like, well, who do you admire? Who have you seen in your life that has that result? And someone may be like, oh, Michelle Obama, oh, Julia Roberts, whoever. And I was like, okay, well, let's think about the characteristics that you acknowledge and observe in those two people. So now we have the physical. Remember, I gave you the example of Erwin becomes the character. He's that character physically. So now we go, okay, this is what the character looks like. This is how the character dresses. These are the artifacts that the character uses. Like you guys have seen, like, especially like with Superman. Clark Kent puts on his glasses, right? But when he's Superman, he takes them off. And so just like if you were going to be like I had this past client, she's a medical student. She was trying to pass the step to like the second part of the medical examination. And she just kept like getting panic attacks every time she was taking the test. And so I worked with her for about a year and she finally passed it when she became the doctor. I mean, I had her literally go, okay, let's create her right now. It's like, oh, she always wears the lab coat. Well, let's go get a lab coat. Oh, she always has red lipstick right here. So when she goes in to do such and such, well, let's put the red lipstick on. And now it was a matter of just like we did in theater. It's like I would tell the kids, before rehearsal, I would get them once rehearsal started. I was like, okay, guys, you have 15 minutes to get into character. So then I would say to her, okay, whenever you're about to go on rounds, create yourself, create that character, get into character. So that's what I mean with the E in become. And then C is clarifying. So now we're adding all the layers of given circumstances, what are the details? And so how does that, transfer to life? What are their values? What's the vision? What's their purpose? Like now we're just adding dimension and depth to them and to their characters so that, like someone says, oh, my top value is my family. And so they would look at the calendar and go, how many things did you do with your family last month? Well, none because, I had to work and my boss said I had to do this proposal and then I had to help this group and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Do you want that to be your top value? Is that part of you becoming in the being that you want to walk through the world as? Well, absolutely. Okay. Then let's shift what's happening in your life so that you are better aligned with family being your top value. And then we go to O. O is owning your power. And so I've realized that even with myself, there are so many times where we give our power away. Like here's a a really silly example, but this just happened yesterday. So I put in to get our pool timer broke. And then the pool company said, oh, the technician will be there between 9 and 12 on the door knocking at 7:30 a.m. Well, I'm still asleep, so I'm up, and then I've got to like get myself together. I've got to quickly brush my teeth, and guy's just knocking at 7:30, and then I open the door. He goes, I'm here with the company, and I was like, it's 7:30. I know, I'm sorry, I'm early. And so immediately I gave my power away because I was, disheveled. I'm like, I can't believe this guy showed up at 7:30. Of course, these are all my internal monologues. And so then in the back, we go in the backyard and he's like, okay, yeah, here's the timer. And then we were going to get our salt cell replaced. And he goes, in order for us to replace that, the company's going to want this salt cell to be really, really clean. I'm like, dude, just replace the salt cell. So now I'm like, instead of being like a 5 because he woke me up at 7:30, I'm now like a 9.5 because I'm pissed that I got to now go clean that salt cell. And I'm stomping around going, "Argh." And I was like, and then I realized I was completely out of homeostasis. I was completely out of who I wanted to be and how I wanted to show up. And so once I got a grip, I actually apologized to the guy. And it's not who I am at my core. It's not how I want you to remember this interaction. And so I had given him, I call it like, we go in our house and we go, oh, it's hot in here. And then we turn the thermostat down so it can cool it off. Well, it was almost like he knocked on the door at 7:30 and I said, here you go. Here's my thermostat. Do whatever you want with it. And he went and ran it up to like it's 99 degrees in the house. That's how I view me giving my power over because, again, just like Steve said, we're meaning making machines. So according to what we focus on and the meanings we make, we can turn our power over to anyone. So then M is for method. It's the method acting. It's like becoming the character. Now let's walk through a day in the life. All day today, you have to be that character. And then on the next call, we go through and go, okay, where did you fall out of character? Where did you revert to old patterns, old paradigms, old operating system? And then the E is for execution. So now they're doing the work consistently. They're taking bold action and they have become their future self because it's kind of like execution is important because that's where we build a system. If we know that you can become the person you want because in the morning you get up and you meditate and then you go to the gym and then you listen to music and then you journal, whatever that system is that gets you the outcome and helps you become the person that you want to become, then we want to make sure that it's repeatable. This is a system that we're going to go, this is who you are, and this is how you wake up. This is how you go throughout your day. So that's the become method.
Mhm. Right. And how do you deal with people that do this and how they need to react or behave or tell people around them? Because, of course, if you're going to start acting to be a little bit different, they're going to sense that.
Right.
And
It's it's never so far to where, it's so far-fetched because I want people to notice that that person is different, but in a good way.
yeah,
Like for instance, if I'm working on confidence, instead of, someone used to tiptoe into the room. Well, now they walk in and own the room. And so people may go, oh my goodness, Erwin. I don't know who this is. I love him though. I love the way you just showed up today. And no one's going to go, well, what character are you playing? Everybody's going to go, Erwin is feeling himself today. Oh my goodness, I love this Erwin. So nobody questions, as far as I'm concerned, I've never known anyone to question, like, why are you doing that? People just go,
yeah.
I'm inspired. I'm empowered. I want some of what Erwin is, whatever he's drinking, eating, smoking, whatever. I want some of that.
I've seen similar things. It's not a radical shift
Hmm.
because when we radically change character, it really does feel out of character and it feels too far. Whereas
Totally.
that's not what you're speaking to. You're not speaking to be a completely different character. You're speaking to, I loved you were speaking to a lot of what we put in discovery sessions, values and visions and dreams and all of these aspirational things. And often that's where
Hmm.
they stop as an aspirational. Oh, this should be my value, or I want that to be. But what you did and what you were speaking was, well, great. Let's turn it to behavior.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes from Aristotle: we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. And that's built in
Mhm.
to the formula that you're using. And so, well, actually, let's behavioral experiments. Let's practice it. Let's do things differently. Let's learn from that. But let's build up the muscle memory, just like when you're playing golf or tennis. This is how I hit a forehand now. Hey, cool.
Yeah, so true. So true. Yeah, I love every bit of it. Every bit of it.
We can see that. How does this apply to business? Because like we talk coaches and coaching, but how does this apply to business leaders and people in that field?
So I believe it applies in a way that, like, again, I love using examples because this is how I use it exactly with my clients. So it applies to business in a form of the clients that I work with are like executives, like human resources. And so it applies in a very subtle way. When do you feel the most confident? What are you wearing? And so even in corporate, in business, it's like, okay, then don't wear jeans on Tuesday when you are, giving a presentation. My med student, you red lipstick is what you owe. So it's still professional. It's just that it's kind of like when you think about if you two had a favorite person, you're like, if that, like you said, if you were like, oh my goodness, I won the lottery. I can have a conversation with Aristotle. I know he's not here, but you know what? He is now. Now, would you listen like you listen to someone who just rambles and you're not really present? Or would you be hanging off the edge of your chair, hanging on to every word that Aristotle delivered? So now, when we're talking about who do you want to be and how do you want to show up in the business world, when we bring that kind of listening, when we bring that kind of attention to that detail, because we're completely like even if you two just experimented with, well, how am I different if like are you both married?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay. How am I different when I go home to my spouse and I'm not preoccupied, but I'm listening like Steve, like it's Aristotle? Would it be different when you're now sitting down to have dinner? Would that whole interaction be different? And so it's subtle changes like that that go, this shows up in the business world because now we're focused on bringing our best listening, eliminating the judgments, all of those things, being aware of our thinking. And so with each person, it's always different. And so I have clients who range from, I don't work with anyone younger than 35 because I like their suitcases to be full of stuff. Because I've experimented with working with some 20-year-olds, 20 somethings, and I was like, yeah, they don't have enough stuff to unpack and to play with and really, really mold and create. And so I just believe that it's not completely different from even if you want to like improve your relationship. I think it's who you're being and who you want to become. And I believe that it's a matter of creating yourself to be that person. And so I just don't think there's a huge difference. I just think the character's different.
I'm aligned with that. It's a different scene of the same performance.
Yeah.
Uh, and one of the themes that came out from what you just said is that empowered choice again. As leaders, we often run from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and our context calls from us the character.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is, well, actually, we can still be busy and still choose. This is why,
Yeah.
when training coaches, it's like, hey, take a moment, center yourself before your clients come on. This is
Yeah.
part of getting into the character or the role. As we, heck, I teach a lot of executives about check-ins in meetings.
Hmm.
If we can host a check-in, we can all become present. We can all be ready for the shared role that we've got
Right.
ahead of us. And these are simple examples of humanity and how we can choose to apply it in interactions, whether it's
Absolutely.
life. It's at home, it's with the kids, it's with the dog. It's
Yeah.
life is life.
Life is life. So true. Yep. Absolutely.
Something comes up to my mind, and it's what you've been explaining, Travia, is also very interesting in the reverse. So imagine that I am sitting, how can I depeel a person in front of me to know what character is he or she playing, so that I'm being able how to direct in one or the other direction?
Wow. So I don't,
So I've got an
I,
example that came to my mind,
okay.
and I know it's maybe it's like Donald Trump, president.
Okay.
If you look at him, what act is he playing? What role is he playing? What allows me, if I need to sit down with him or whatever, what is the character that he or she is playing, and how can I take that in an ethical way advantage for me to negotiate or going on?
Right. First of all, I pay attention to how I feel in that person's presence. And so, one of the main things, if you're sitting across from someone, like I know we're doing a podcast right now, but if the three of us were in a cafe meeting over a coffee or something, and Steve just talked and talked and talked and talked and talked, never asked anything about Erwin, never asked anything about me, well, we obviously know something about him, right? I know how I am being motivated to feel based on that. And so my deal is I go with which check engine lights are going off right now. Is my chest getting tight? Am I comfortable with this person? So I'm not sitting there going which character they're playing. I'm thinking, how do I feel in this person's presence? If it feels supportive and inviting, I probably want to stay. If it doesn't, then I don't want to stay there. And so I don't put a lot of time into figuring out what character they're playing. I look at their traits and how this environment, how our interaction is motivating me to feel or not feel. And I just decide, I make decisions based on, well, do I want to stay here? Because one of the things that I do often is I do my very best not to like blur the lines between three types of people, 3 minute people, 3 hour people, 3 day people. And sometimes if you recognize that it's Donald Trump sitting in front of you, he's not going to get more than 3 minutes of my time. And so I wouldn't go, ooh, let me look at all the characteristics of him. Well, we can go all day on that. So,
Yeah, yeah. Or just an
right.
example.
Yeah, we could. But I just recognize that it's not a part of the tribe. It's not someone that I want to give my time to. And so I just don't waste any time going, well, what are their character traits? Who are they playing? I just go, I don't want to be around this person, so I won't.
I'm thinking more like in a business environment. So sometimes in certain negotiation, they can, and you can play a role as well. You can go in,
Totally.
you can prepare yourself to go in there. I'm a salesperson. I need to beat this. But it's like you said, you've done competitions and athletics. It's a competition, and you want to win in one way or another.
Yeah.
Then at that time, it's important to learn what role are they playing? What is there? Because at the end, if you negotiate, you want to have a good deal.
You want to have a good deal, but I still think that if we are, even in that example, if I am interviewing someone and I go, well, he's not being authentic, he's not being genuine, I just think I am losing focus on the objective of this. I feel like that puts me too far in my head. And if I go, oh my goodness, I've never seen Erwin be a salesman like this, but he came in and he rocked it. Dude, I don't care what character you're playing. Rock that salesman and go get us, 20 more. You can play all the characters you want. I can see you at lunch and you can pretend to be Pee Wee Herman. And if you're cracking me up, be Pee Wee Herman. So I just,
Yeah.
I don't want to get into,
Yeah.
of like judging you and going, oh my gosh, who's he playing? So yeah, that's just the way I look at
Yeah.
it. I would love it.
Yeah. As I listen to your question, Erwin, I think it's a really common one. And for me, part of my view and what I'm hearing, Travia, from what you're saying is that we spend a lot of time focusing on others when actually we should pay attention to ourselves. Travia, your example was, hey, if I'm in that environment, I'm listening here. Yeah, the embodiment is a big theme that you talk of. Too much of the time we spend kind of thinking, intellectualizing, and there's so much wisdom that we each have in our body. And actually, when we can listen here first, when we can recover back to who we want to be and how we want to show up, now we're in an empowered place to accept, address, or influence the behavior of others. But it's really got to start from here. Otherwise, there's this whole element of blame and judgment that we put on
Yes.
people that gets in the way of positive collaboration and moving in the directions that we wanted to be moving.
100%. Beautifully stated, Steve.
Just find the words that you put out there. So thanks for sharing them. Hey, we could
Absolutely.
definitely have this conversation continue. We're kind of coming towards the end. For
Yes.
those that are inspired, intrigued, or curious and would love to learn more about you, your work, and how you see the world, how can people find you?
You know, I have a website. It's my name. It's traviasteward.com. And a lot of my links are right there. And, you know, if anyone is interested, they can go to my website, and I'm doing laser sessions, just like one-offs, just because I want to give people a little taste of, hey, let's unpack this one thing from your suitcase, you know, like in a 30-minute session, wherever, but everything can be found on my website at traviasteward.com. And I'm on all the socials. So, well, not all, not Twitter or X. Um, so
Uh,
Instagram, LinkedIn, those, not Facebook either. So yeah,
Great. Thank you very much, Travia. That was really interesting chat that we had.
you're welcome.
And it always fascinates me, certainly theater and acting and stuff like that, and the combination where from people come from. So thank you very much for this, for sharing this with us and everybody listening. And for everybody
Absolutely.
else, thank you very much. And we see you next episode. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for tuning in to The Coaching Edge. Until next time, keep coaching and keep growing.